The nations in an uproar. Genesis chapter 15, verses 1 through 21. Genesis 15 is pivotal to the understanding of the nature, scope, and gravity of God's promise to Abraham, and specifically his descendants, the Jewish people and nation, when Abram and Sarai were too old, childless, and past the age of childbearing. God appeared to Abram again, and with the promise of a son, an heir, and countless generations of children. What are the terms of God's promise to Abraham? Why is God faithful and just, even when his chosen people are fickle, fearful, and faithless? First, God's promise to Abraham is professed in Genesis chapter 15, verses 1 through 6. God's promises are true, trustworthy, and timeless. Abram was ready for his servant Eliezer, in verse 2, to be his heir and to benefit from his vast fortune. But God told Abram that his biological son will be the heir. The first occurrence of the words believe in verse 6 in righteous in the Bible is forever fittingly associated with Abraham. God's promise to Israel was secure because of Abram's belief, not Israel's behavior, and Abram's righteousness, not Israel's results. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 11 says, "By faith Abraham, even though he was past age and Sarah herself was barren, was enabled to become a father because he considered him faithful who had made the promise. Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed." In Romans chapter 4 verse 18, without weakening in his faith, in Romans chapter 4 verse 19, or wavering through unbelief. Second, God's protection of Israel is proven in Genesis chapter 15 verses 12 through 16. As Abram fell into a deep sleep, God further added that the Israelites would experience enslavement, exploitation, and exile for 400 years in Egypt, the kind that even in deep sleep Abram could feel the menace, mistreatment, and misery. Yet no amount of persecution, politics, or pain can remove God's promise. The covenant God made with Abram is an exclusive, enviable, and everlasting covenant. The survival of the Jews and the Jewish nation is one of the strongest arguments for the existence of God and the inspiration of the Bible. The unconditional and unyielding love of God is the key to understanding Israel's deliverance, defense, and destiny. The three strongest tests will not change God's love: the might of Egypt in verse 13, the passing of time and the death of Abraham, further displeasure, discrimination, and dishonesty from Israel's enemies would not separate the Lord from the apple of his eye. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 10. Israel will experience sorrow and suffering, but she will receive strength and sustenance to overcome danger and deception. God, however, will discipline Israel for her unbelief, but he will never deny or desert her. Third, God's provision of land is permanent. Genesis chapter 15, verses 18 through 21. Up to today, Israel does not have control of the lands in verses 18 through 21. Once captured at the height of King David's reign, the United States' support for Israel will not change because of its Jewish ties to Israel. The evangelical support at home and American interest in the Middle East, there would be more resistance and retaliation until Jesus, the Messiah, returns. Even though God is faithful to his promise to Israel, he has not forsaken the nations. God has an inheritance for Israel and her neighbors. Jeremiah chapter 12, verses 14 through 16, Isaiah chapter 19, verses 23 through 25. Though the Palestine and Israel conflict is unresolved, Israel has made some progress with her neighbors, from Egypt in 1979 to Jordan in 1994. In conclusion, God's plan for Israel is to be a light to the world, in Isaiah chapter 42, verse 6, and a blessing on earth, Isaiah chapter 19, verse 24, and that all the peoples on earth will be blessed through her, Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. Are you an ambassador of Christ? 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 19 through 20, and a light to the world. As Christians, have you prayed for Israel's peace? Psalms 122, verse 6. Her harmony with her neighbors, Genesis chapter 20, verse 17, and her contribution to the world, Isaiah chapter 42, verse 6. Have you prayed for war victims, peace on earth, and God's kingdom coming. May the Lord steer, spare, and save the nations and people from vengeance, vitriol, and violence.